In a perfect world, no child would ever be abused or neglected or vulnerable to violence in the very place they call home. But the world is hardly perfect, and sometimes children are safer away from mom and dad, living somewhere else, somewhere they can be better cared for. That's why CASA exists.
CASA works with children who have been abused and neglected by their parents or their guardians. They've been removed from their parents' care because that abuse was alarming enough, hideous enough, that the juvenile court system had to intervene.
In my experience, the vast majority of them have a common thread of substance abuse. So they come from very chaotic homes with lots of domestic violence. They learn early on they can't depend on their parents. So they come from highly traumatized backgrounds.
When these kids are pulled out of their homes and become wards of the court under the child welfare system, they're dealing with a sea of officials. And that could be a judge, a lawyer, a cop, a shrink, a counselor, a social worker, a group home leader, a foster home leader. These are all people who have their responsibilities to the system and to the child, but not in a personal way. Their involvement is very professional.
On an average day in Sonoma County, there are 600 kids in protective care, many of them scared and confused and not sure who they can depend on.
We see them as often as we can, but we can't possibly spend as much time with them as we'd like to, nor can their social workers.
There have been so many cutbacks, so many increased numbers of cases, so many closed services for children, so many lack of abilities for individuals to spend the amount of time that each child needs, that the social workers haven't been able to do the job alone.
There are, limits to how much time we can spend with a kid. So given those limited resources and the limited amount of time, the CASA fills in the gap.
What you really got is another pair of eyes that has no particular agenda, looking at a situation where agendas proliferate.
A CASA is the one sole human element who remains with the kid throughout their time in foster care, that this kid can learn to depend on when, in every other way, the adult world has failed that kid.
What we have to do as youth advocates is we have to peel back all the layers of pain and sadness and anger, all the frustrations, all the losses and the voids in their lives. What we have to do is we have to show who this real person is inside, who this special, beautiful, young adult or this little boy or little girl is. And by spending time with them, we'll get to know who that child is, and we'll be able to do that.
That's really important for the child to feel like there's somebody for them, somebody that cares about them, someone who can be a role model, and someone that can advocate for their needs.
There's an old expression, it's never too late to become what you might have been. I see CASA workers help kids become what they deserve to be.
Chelsea was my longest case, probably the most successful. I think the role of the CASA is really to be a voice for the children in the program. They have a lot of people that care about them. They have attorneys, they have social workers, they may have foster parents, but I think the CASA sort of provides that sustained role model throughout their time period in the program.
A lot of our kids haven't had the best role models in their life, and so I think that's what you try to do. Try to give them something that is an alternative to what they've seen growing up.
Children of the child welfare system are typically not looking for another adult in their life. So when we're assigned to the case, one of the jobs that we have is to go out and help demystify what adult relationships look like for these kids.
Chelsea admits she didn't want to meet Cynthia at first.
Yeah, we met at a coffee shop with my social worker, and I didn't want to go, but I went. And yeah, we've been friends ever since then.
I wanted to be sure to be engaging to her, to be interesting, not to just be another boring adult that's in her life that she has to tell a story to. Because again, there's so many people in their world at that time.
It took some time, and what I started using to break through with that was sports.
James is a CASA to 2 young boys.
Eventually, the trust started coming in because we started having that bond on the same field, so to speak.
I was really reluctant and hesitant to meet Joe and Jerry because they'd been through so much, and I was afraid I couldn't handle it. But they turned out to be just two great kids, and we've had nothing but a great, enjoyable time since. But I was very apprehensive. I think probably new CASAs all are. But they're just kids.
To see a child come from circumstances they didn't ask for, didn't deserve, and give them a chance to be successful in life and have what they call normal existence. It's the best use of time I can think of.
But until you actually get involved and you actually do it, you're not going to know the feeling. I'm telling you now, it's a good feeling. It really is a good feeling.
You can rest assured that that child's life is being bettered.
Children are our futures. That's what's going to make this world different and better. And we need to grow children up smart. And to do that, for them to let their little brains be smart, they need to be safe. And they need to feel loved, and they need to feel cared about.
She taught me a lot about life. She brought out a lot of good in me.
After a child is removed from their home and enters the child welfare system, they often begin a long and lonely journey of endless courtrooms and unfamiliar faces. Attorney Jackie Gillespie knows all about this. She represents the more than 600 kids in the foster care system in Sonoma County.
In the life of a case, but when a child enters foster care, by the time they age out at 18 or 19, they suffer, and I use that word intentionally, 8 to 10 different placements. And that may not sound so horrific to us, we're adults. I mean, I can pack up my kids and my dog and my possessions and move without too much trauma. With these kids, we ask them to move 8 to 10 times, and that means leaving their community, their school, their football team, their peer group, their foster home, their group home, and we ask them to do this time and time again. And it's no wonder to us that they stop investing in relationships. They just won't do it anymore. Why should they?
The kids have been horribly abused. Actually, they wouldn't be in the child welfare system if there hadn't been a lot of dysfunction, a lot of pain and sadness in their life already. In a professional sense, what we call that is loss. By the times they reach us, they're pretty angry kids. Sometimes they're angry at their parents, but for the most part, really all they wanted us to do is they want us to fix their parents. They want us to make their parents okay. And they get angry when we can't fix them.
I think that's probably the one statement I heard over and over with the teenage girls that I worked with in CASA is, why am I being punished? Why do I have to go live in this other home or this other group home? Why do I have to go to this other school? I can't just go be with my friends like normal kids can. And it's really challenging for those kids because as a result of their parents' abuse or drug addictions or whatever the situation might be, the kids are the ones that suffer for it.
Because these kids have never had the ability to rely on anybody. By definition, they're removed from their parents because of abuse and neglect, and they can't trust their parents. So I see a huge difference that one person can make in the life of a child.